Hi, my name's Steven.
Hi, I'm April.
This is the 3 Pi Squared ABA Business Leaders Podcast, where we discuss topics on how to create and grow an ethical and sustainable ABA practice.
Together, Steven and I owned a 7-figure ABA practice that provided both clinic and in-home services.
3 Pi Squared has helped over 900 ABA practices start up and expand with our comprehensive products and services geared specifically to ABA. Now, let's get to the podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to ABA Business Leaders Podcast, brought to you by 3 Pi Squared. I'm April.
I'm Steven.
All right. Mystery topic.
Yep.
A lot of times we show up and the topic is mystery for Steven. Mm-hmm. But today it's complete mystery. I mean, he knows nothing about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I didn't know any but the last 4 that we did. We're doing another one today and I don't even know what it's about. So.
We have a guest this afternoon, so you better get with it. Now, so our topic this morning is a topic that was in my file here. Mm-hmm. I make my podcast outlines and ideas and brainstorms, and then I print them off because I'm 47 and that's what I do. And I put them in my folder. And I even have a little sticky note here as my little divider between the ones that we've done and the ones that we haven't done yet. So that's some organization there. Anyway, so in my file here, I had a topic of hiring. And hiring is one of those things that's a hot topic, right? We're really struggling in our field right now. However, it's also one of those topics that I often look at and I just go on past it. I don't want to talk about that today.
I feel like you're going past it today too.
But today, Steven and I on our morning mental health walk on probably the first warmest day here in Atlanta, Canada, although it was still very windy. Steven and I talked about hiring.
Okay.
Do you remember talking about hiring during our walk?
I said, you know what? I don't remember what we talked about here. I don't remember what we talked about there. I don't know what we talked about over here.
Well, anyway, Steven referenced some guy, some influencer. I don't know that we know the name of this person.
Let me look it up because I.
And he said that, like, he was talking about how ego, right, like, is in the mix with hiring people. And that sent light bulbs and connections. And I was like, you know what? As soon as we get home, after I have some breakfast, I'm going to dig out that podcast topic of hiring and I'm going to see if I can spin it in a different direction. Because a lot of times that's why some of the topics I like procrastinate on, because it just doesn't quite feel right yet. Like, it's like, okay, this is the same conversation. I don't want to have the same conversation again. And then something comes up that helps me look at it in a different way, like a different perspective, or come at it at a different angle. Mm-hmm. Or, like I'm constantly have 27, some days 52 tabs open in my brain and it's like running in the background, right? And so sometimes like connections are happening and I'm not even aware of it. And then ta-da! And it all comes together. And so
do you want to see that clip?
Yeah, we can.
I'll share my screen.
I haven't even seen this. Steven was just mentioning it to me.
And we'll see if we can keep this. We might have to cut it out.
We might not be able to keep it, yeah.
So I'm gonna.
So let's reference this guy.
It. And his name is Gary V. Everybody knows Gary V. I just couldn't remember his name. You don't know Gary V?
I don't know Gary V. I'm excited about learning about someone new.
I got really good hiring advice. Learn to fire fast. You guys have your ego tied up in your hiring. You think you're so good at hiring. And then you hire somebody and they're shit, but you make pretend they're not because firing them admits that you were wrong. So it's your own ego that's holding you back. My ego is only balanced by my humility. I hired somebody for hundreds of thousands of dollars 6 months ago, interviewed him 3 times. I fired him one day into working at VaynerMedia. I'm like, fuck. Check your ego in the door. You're not that great at fucking hiring, but good news, nobody is.
Yeah. So just that fleeting conversation that we had on our walk this morning got the wheels spinning. And I love that. I love, we like coming to some of these same topics and with like I said a minute ago, with a different perspective and looking at it in a different way. And So that being said, I put together some chicken scratch, some brainstorm and drawing, like connecting pieces and like figuring out how to make all of this work. That being said, I don't have the most super organized lineup for today, but let's face it, a lot of times I come with a super organized lineup and we're still all over the place. That's just who we are. Yeah. We just like to chat about these things and get the conversations rolling. So my plan is to first talk about why we struggle with hiring, and then talk about the ego trap, and then maybe how hiring impacts turnover. Because there's a big piece there, right? That, so part of the problem, right, is hiring, itself, finding people to hire. And then it's also keeping those people once they're here. And is there a way that we can hire somebody in a way that they stay with us longer? So we'll get into all of that. You ready?
Yeah. I just like to just say this, and like where I come at it is that I don't want to say very similar. I shouldn't say very similar to what we just saw in that clip, but like, especially when you're starting out, this is, you can have all of the policies and paperwork and all the questions ready for these interviews, and it's gonna feel chaotic. And like, did I do a good job? Is this, they answered it like this. I was expecting this. Should I hire this person? Right? It's going to be a lot of unknowns, especially if you have not hired people in the past. So just be aware that you're going to suck at this at first, and you will get better. I think that something you should do though is trust your gut. And this goes with hiring people. This goes with,
we cover that. We're going to talk about that some more. Yeah.
And I just want to stay like this. This goes into, if you're getting a contractor, right, an accountant, an attorney, I would use that same kind of system for those as well. Are they aligned with my values? And what does my gut say after this? Which is another reason why you should have a mindfulness practice, because it's harder to recognize what your gut is saying if you don't know how to feel into your body. Anyways,
you're not tuned into your gut.
Yep. That's
all right. So, real talk. Why we struggle with hiring? Okay. So, I've hired the wrong person more than once. We were talking at our walk, like some people are good at hiring and some people are bad at hiring, and then you have the people who are bad at hiring and they know they're bad at hiring, right? And then you have the people that are bad at hiring and they think they're good at hiring, right? So do you know which one of those you are? I feel like I got better. I feel like I did improve. I feel like I learned a lot. I still came out of it, and even still when we're hiring people to help us with 3Pi², and I still always in the process wish I had a crystal ball, right? Sure. Like, just please tell me how this is going to end up. Because, sometimes I really connect with the people and I'm like, get excited and pumped. I'm like, oh, this is really going to work. And then it doesn't, and so it's like and we'll talk about this more in a minute, but like, how long do you hang on to that? Right. So, common challenges that we have in our field, especially I would say right now, are hiring in a rush. Potentially not trusting your gut feelings. And, we work in a science field, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people that hear us right now heard us talk about, trust your gut. They're like rolling their eyes at us, right? Like, what does that even mean? Define that, right? And the other thing is having unclear expectations. And just the truth of what we've already touched on a couple of times already is hiring is a skill. there's a skill there. It's not just a natural ability. I mean, you do have people who have more of a natural ability connecting to others and getting others to talk and show up more in their genuine self and bringing that out in them. But overall, like, it's still, there's a skill there. Like, the struggle is real, and I hear you. You're, in a lot of cases, you're not just hiring to grow. You're hiring because you have clients waiting for service. You have staff who are burning out. You have a business that's constantly in motion. And it's like real pressure. The pressure is building and the stakes are like incredibly high, right? Even if you are hiring for the first time as you're just starting to grow your business, you might say, well, April, I'm hiring just because I want to grow. I get that. And I'd like you to explore that further. What's your intention there? What's coming first? Are you hiring a team to have a team gathered, to get them trained, to have them work together, and then you're getting clients? Or do you already have clients in the ready, or you're getting clients along the way and then you're hiring for those clients, right? So I would say that latter would not be you're just hiring to grow. And I get that. And I was going to ask you to pull that up. Amazing. And in the real life of it all, there's a barrier, a financial barrier, because in a lot of cases, we need to hire to then be able to bill, to then be able to make the money. And so that leaves us even in the beginning, from the first stages, in this position where we're already like behind the game. I have talked numerous times about, we really have to train our staff, but I get, and part of that is that initial training. And especially for people brand new in the field and techs, before we put them out, and especially in home services where they're not getting, the support that they really need, in those beginning weeks and months. And I've, questioned of like, well, how much money should you have to even start hiring, right? Like, are we starting in the beginning? Are we setting ourselves up for this race, right? Like, is there a way that we can back up and we can have a little bit of that financial capacity in the beginning so that we can slow down a little bit? But that might be the wish for the genie in the bottle, and the genie has not come out of that bottle yet. And I say that kind of jokingly. I do still think that there's things that we can change to start to address that. But I'm just going to put that to the side here for now. And let's address the real issue in this moment, is that we are rushed. And when we rush to fill that gap, we often create bigger gaps, right? It's that, okay, we're going to hurry up and we'll grab this person. Oh, we'll take this person. Oh, we'll hire this person. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say about that in this moment. And then we can move on into, let's move on into talking about the ego trap. So how our ego shows up in hiring. I just brainstormed this. These are just my ideas. Okay. And I do have a few references here in a minute from other people who have said this. But our ego shows up in hiring because we want to be liked. We're seeking people who think like us. Okay. We feel offended when someone says no. Those are my ideas. Do you have any ideas of like how our ego show up in hiring?
I mean, I don't know if it's ego. Maybe it is ego, but there's certainly some level of responsibility. And if you are ultimately, probably everyone listening to this is ultimately the decision maker on who gets hired. You may have a team, and I would highly recommend having a team to put some kind of a balance in place. But ultimately, even if the team says no, and you're like, I don't know, I think I'm right on this one, and you make that decision, you are on the hook for that decision and everything that they do within your company after that. So that's how I personally looked at it. So there's that level of responsibility of knowing, like, and I mean, yeah, you're probably not on the hook for every action they make, and people make mistakes and blah, blah, blah. But the reason why they're with your company is because ultimately you made that decision. And so, yeah, you're kind of responsible for every action they take from that point forward within your company, right? Even some of the actions they take outside of your company. So, that's kind of how that's a ridiculous amount for your ego. So when it works out, that's a real, like, you can pat yourself on the back. Great decision, right? And then when it doesn't work out, it's certainly a good kick in the pants, right?
Yeah, you go both ways.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how could ego keep us from, like, how could ego, like, get in our way? And so asking for help could be one. And that was like a previous conversation we had on our walk. I won't go on there right now, but like being able to ask for help.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing of knowing what you even need to help with, but I don't know that that's so much ego. I think that the ego stands in like asking for help, taking feedback, and admitting hiring mistakes.
Yeah.
Right?
That's probably at least for me, that's difficult.
Because it's like, oh, they didn't work out. They sucked. They didn't show up in the way that we thought they were going to. Right? Versus, oh, yeah, I had that feeling in my gut and I didn't listen to it. Right. Or I'm going to be honest. I'm like 80%, I was like 80% sure this wasn't going to work out, but I was willing to give it a try.
Or the worst part is, wow, like I did not see this one coming. I was certain they were going to work out. Right.
Yeah. And that might even be like where, who knows, like the blind spot, right? Yeah. So ego hires for validation. Just throwing this out here. I don't know. Ego hires for validation, and leaders hire for values and impact.
Okay.
How does that land with you?
I'll see where this goes. And
Sounds good. So when we talk about how ego shows up, you hit on this. It's like hiring people can make you feel really good.
Mm-hmm.
And going deeper into like just that quick brainstorm list that I had said a minute ago, but even going deeper in that, like we could choose candidates who validate us instead of challenge us.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And I've done this myself, like looking for yes people. It was one of the things that I recognized early on in hiring. Well, early on in our company, but not, maybe a couple years into hiring, where I realized that I tended to like and want to hire the people who I thought would say yes to me, that would, and the way I framed it to myself was like people that would hear me or understand me or get me.
Okay.
And really, I think that just means that like people that would be easier to say yes to me, if I really dig into that. And then we can confuse confidence with competence, I think, too, within that. So there's like a piece of it. As far as ego, part of, and this is kind of going to wrap in with what I was going to kind of end the session with, but I didn't even kind of make that connection until now, that maybe that's just part of how to keep the ego in check. And then I'd love to hear your thoughts, but like, how to hire with less ego. You just have like structured tools, and you use diverse perspectives. You use a team approach. And then you practice self-awareness. and normalize being wrong. So I don't know. I'm assuming the self-awareness piece is what you might talk on more.
I mean, like anybody can power through a 30-minute conversation, right? And so like knowing that, right, that they can come in and they can be on top of it, they can say all the right things, right? I would highly recommend that you don't provide those questions that you're going to ask ahead of time, because we're seeing that people are using ChatGPT to get the right answer, right? So, yeah, I mean, my just knowing that this is probably them on their best day, right? At least trying to be on their best day. And so what does that look like? And then, or on
the flip side, it might be them full of nerves.
I mean, it could be. Yeah. And there are people, that totally get nervous during interviews. I agree. You're right. I think the biggest issue is you're more than likely being like you said, all that data, like get opinions and, have all the questions and get the answers, have standard questions, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, we've done podcasts on all of that.
Yeah. But I think that when you look at the data, it'd be interesting to see. I personally believe that you're probably more driven by your gut than you would like to believe. And if you don't realize that, maybe you need to do some self-awareness training.
I mean, that's true. I mean, I would think that it would be hard to take data on that, because people would have to be pretty self-aware and be able to see that within themselves and be willing to report that.
Well, I think that you could look at the data that you collected and then see which ones were hired. And then, you could probably put that into some kind
maybe able to make a pattern out of that.
Yeah. I think you probably could.
According to the Society for Human Resources Management, up to 50% of new hires leave within the first 18 months.
Okay.
And I feel like I ran out of time to Google further this morning, because I was trying to find because I feel like that's an outdated, I feel like I've heard a more recent, from 2024 statistic. And they stated in this that most of the failures are due to poor culture fit and not lack of skills. We talk about that a lot, values, driving your values into the whole decision-making process. And, from step one, having the values be part of it. And you may have a really good professional who, clinician or whomever, that's just not a good fit for your company, and that's okay. It doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's just not a good fit. But and then the cost of a bad hire can be as much as 30% of the employee's first year salary or more, when factoring in team morale and lost productivity. And that's why I have a note here for to talk about the calculator that we have.
Right.
But then also in our news
that's right there.
Was it 2 weeks ago? Mm-hmm. There are some stats about turnover. You want to share those?
Yeah. So, we have a few sources here. So Central Reach is saying that smaller organizations, it's 77.4%. And then you look at larger organizations and they are at 103%. So that means their entire staff is turning over. Their entire staff plus is turning over. And then you have the BCBAs 2022 report. So it's a little bit older, but 65% average turnover, 1 year median tenure.
Hard
for BTs. And how do you say that? Employ. Said 65% turnover. Most staff leave within 1 to 2 years. So I mean, they're all basically,
it's high.
It's high. Yeah.
And I wonder too, I was going to make the observation of the BCBAs in 2022 says 65%, and then the Central Reach in 2025 is saying as much as 103%. I don't know how well we can compare those data points, but I do feel just from observation and from hearing ABA business leaders, talk about this, like it wouldn't surprise me that it's getting worse, not getting better.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, one thing that was surprising to me over the last few years was the turnover rate on BCBAs. Traditionally, 5-6 years ago, BCBAs were kind of stable. They would stay in one position for years, and more often I'm seeing now, BCBAs lasting 6 months. So, going back to the interviewing process, having a really robust interviewing process, and not like, I get people are rushed. I understand that. You need to slow this down, right? This is such an important part of it. You can check out our calculator, our turnover calculator. I believe it's $7,000 to $8,000 per.
Is that available? Is that something we can share in the show notes, or do they need to be a business leader to see that?
They can. You can go to our news as well and just search RBT. Actually, you can probably just search turnover, and you will get both articles. The latest one we did, the turnover, and then the cost of an RBT. And the calculator is in that second article. We did this about 5 years ago. And I believe that you can put in like billable hours lost, what's the average rate of billable hours, how much lost BCBA billable hours, what's your BCBA rate, what's the training costs, do you have a tech training rate, how many paid training hours do you provide, and then the onboarding costs. So like there's admin time in there, right? Whether it's yours or an actual admin person, and then what are the onboarding costs, like background check, payroll, tax setup, all of education verification, and then you put in how many techs you've lost a year, and we have 3 in here right now, and it's $10,000. So I believe that it's more than that. This is based on a $50 an hour. So let's put something more realistic in here. So now we're talking about almost $12,000. So like, this is where, okay, this is real money, right? This is lost revenue. So how can we do this differently? Because like Dr. Phil, what you're doing right now ain't working. You know what I mean? Like this, how's that working for you? It's not working. So just forget about which is awful to forget about, but let's just put it to the side. The inconsistency on hours that your clients are getting, what that's doing for your clients' success. How that is going to, how much training are your BCBAs going to have to do to get that new person ready to take on those clients? And what are they sacrificing to do that? Are they sacrificing parent training? Are they sacrificing treatment plan updates? Are they sacrificing putting in new tasks or new targets because now we've got this kid who's really excelling, and we can't get any new targets in because and they're master, and we're continuing to do master targets because I've had to train 5 techs over the last 3 months. Like, these things are real, and these are hidden costs that we don't really pick up in this calculator.
Even in part of that too is the learner themselves having to get used to and get to know and connect with a new tech or BCBA too. Correct. And I would like to challenge you to, okay, obviously you're if you do have high turnover, right? You're putting the money into turnover.
Yeah.
Whether you recognize it or not.
Yeah.
So what if you took even a portion of that money that you're putting into turnover and put it into...
And bought our ABA Business Leaders platform.
That is totally not where I was going with that, but put it into preventative measures to figure out ways to provide more quality training and support for your staff, right?
Yeah.
So kind of looking at kind of going back to the whole ego thing, Josiah Nakash, in her article, Factoring in the Human Ego to the Hiring Process. I have not read this book. I did put it on my list to read. She emphasizes that ignoring the role of ego in hiring can lead to convoluted and inefficient recruitment processes.
100%.
She also argues that in order to, and this is a quote from her, in order to solve the hiring issues, we need to start factoring in the human ego to all of these processes. Without that, we're operating in the dark. Nakash suggests that heightened egos, especially post-pandemic, have led to increased anxiety and stress in hiring, affecting trust and transparency between recruiters and candidates. And I never even thought about it in that point. Like I always talk about like the communication. You have to communicate. You have to be clear in your communication. You have to be, upfront. You have to be transparent as possible, right? But I never even thought about the part of like ego rolling into that.
Yeah, more than likely your ego's driving the bus more than you think it is. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
And so if you're completely...
And if you're saying no, then that's your ego talking.
If you're completely oblivious to that, right, and there is no self-awareness to how much you let your ego drive the bus, then I'm sorry. It's driving the bus most of the time and you don't even know it. So there has to be that humility to say, you know what? I am not basing my decision here on data or because you don't have enough data. 2 interviews, even 3 interviews with some questions and doing some team interviews, getting their feedback. That's still not enough data to say, okay, I am willing to take this person on forever, right? Like it's not like you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that with any other thing, right? And so to imagine that you have enough data on a piece of paper that you ask 10 questions, you're fooling yourself, right? And there's somebody's making this decision and it ain't you. So that's just something important. Okay, why am I making this decision? Is it because they answered question A right, or is it because of their tone or their bubbly attitude, or what was the reason? And just getting some idea on what is driving that. And this does take time, right? It does take time. So,
Mubashir Abdullah wrote The Role of Ego in Decision Making, Avoiding Common Pitfalls. Abdullah discusses how ego could cloud judgment in the decision-making process, which that is hiring, right? Which including hiring. He identifies pitfalls such as overconfidence bias, confirmation bias, resistance to feedback, and a desire for control. So a direct quote from
this is like every business owner: desire for control, not wanting to take that feed. You know what I mean? Like this is every business owner.
Thank you. Ego-driven. I mean, I'm raising my hand too, right?
Yeah.
Ego-driven individuals often perceive feedback as a threat to their self. Do I need to give you some comfort while I say this? Ego-driven individuals often perceive feedback as a threat to their self-image, leading to defensive reactions and rejection of constructive criticism.
I totally think this your ego right now is driving the bus and does not realize that it's completely the reverse.
I would say it's pretty fair on both sides.
I don't know about that.
These ego-driven behaviors can hinder effective hiring by promoting biased decisions and stifling diverse perspectives.
Yeah, I mean, this is very similar to, we're talking about your vision, your values. And if you don't take that time to really understand why I'm building this business, what quality services actually looks like, if you don't write this out, get a really good feel of how, your day-to-day it wants to be. What do you want your clients to be saying? What do you want your staff to be saying? How do they feel when they come in, right? Just getting a really good picture of this, writing those down, and then incorporating those into your day-to-day activities. Then you're like, something else is running this company, right? Something else has control of this company. And when things get hard and you don't have that vision, you don't have those values, your self-awareness is low and your humility is low and your ego is high, then we're getting into situations that may turn into be unethical, right? Because we don't have the foresight to see it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have one more to share from Donna Jones, and her piece, How Does Your Ego Impact Your Decision Making? Jones explores the relationship between ego and leadership decisions. And her quote from her is, your relationship with your ego is the fulcrum for advancing your capacity to use uncertainty to personal and business advantage. There's a lot of words. Should I read that again?
No, I mean, it makes sense to me. Like, again, like somebody's making the decision, and 10 questions on one piece of paper is not enough data to make such a long-term commitment.
Yeah. Right? I mean, and she says that she advocates for leaders to engage in self-reflection to understand how their ego influences decisions, including hiring, and to develop strategies to mitigate its negative impacts.
Yes. And I think that where you can kind of put your ego in place and use it to your advantage is when you do have a clear vision, you have clear values, you're using them in the day-to-day, right? So that you can keep that part in check. Oh, this is why I'm doing this, right? This is why I'm hiring this person. It's not because I'm building this, thing that will never be big enough. It's, I want to do this. I want to get this big. I want to be able to serve this many families. Like knowing what this looks like is really important.
So, we're talking, I agree completely. And I feel like a lot of that is like being grounded in your intentions, like knowing, even if you have, because I truly feel for me, and I think most people, your intention is linked to your values, right? And if you find that your intention is not linked to your values, then maybe revisit your values. Because if it's like something that you're setting your intention on the daily, that's most likely, if it's not in your values, it should be in your values. But
right. Well, I think, I don't remember who we were talking to, but your values are what is the result of your company.
Your actions, like your behavior is like
that's
what you're actually doing shows your value.
Yes.
And so I've really trained myself. Sometimes I forget that it's not something that drives not everybody in my life, right? Because like even sometimes I'll start my conversation, okay, well, my intention here is to, and then like when we make our French press coffee every morning, like we set our intentions, right? And some days it's the same intention over and over and over and over again. And then other days it's like something new pops up. But even within activities, within consulting, within preparing for the podcast, like it's like, okay, what's the intention? What's leading this? And really trying to use that. And I don't even remember where I was going with that, because obviously, like, I'm talking about intention, but then I forget where I was going with it.
And I don't mean to like overkill this, but it's all related. And what, like, there's so much pressure for ABA business owners to focus 100% of their time on billables.
Yeah.
100%. And if you do not balance that with like, you want these almost automatic, right? Yeah. You want these values that you cherish and love, to be almost automatic, so that you don't lose sight and focus 100% on billable hours. Because it's just so easy, and everything is like the stream is going down. Like it's just, that's where it's headed. And this is your, like, Like, if you don't believe that you're making decisions on billable hours, again, I'm sorry, you are. You have to.
Yeah. You should, to an extent.
But you should be pointing in that direction based on what is important to you, and that cannot be all that's important. And I would say this to any employee as well. I remember I had like a boss that he said, if you continue down this road of comparing yourself to what other people make, you're going to drive yourself insane. And so I 100% agree with that now, right? At the time, I was like, dude, I like, this guy's making $2 more an hour than me. Like, that's all that matters. You need to pay me more. I like, my value is tied up in my hourly rate. And obviously you do not value me as much as this person. So, you know what I mean? So like, if you're tying yourself up in billables only, even if that's not your intention, but because your vision is not, crystal clear, you're naturally going to go that way because that's just the way the current is going. Do you know what I mean? Because you have to do that anyway. And so you have to have a profitable company. And if your one, I was about to say a funder name, I'm not going to, but if your funder rate is so low that your other funders are subsidizing that funder so that you can keep taking those cases on, your intention is, I want to provide as much therapy as I possibly can, and everybody deserves it, even if their rates are low. Like, what are you doing there, right? That's a little bit of, maybe the ego is driving that. And then you wake up 2 years later and you realize, whoa, I'm losing more money than I'm gaining, right? And now we're stuck in this trap. Now we do have to focus on billable hours. Now we do have to shift to more profitable cases. Now we're doing things that we probably wouldn't normally do, right? We're doing, let's give this kid 35 hours a week, even though he can probably get by on 20, right? Like, you start doing these things to justify where you found yourself because you had no vision and no values in your day-to-day operation. Does that make sense? And so hiring is no different than this, right? Somebody, again, the ego is in everything you do. It's just part of the breath that you take. Your heart is beating. You have an ego. And so knowing that, and I am not any better at it, right? Like, that's part of it, is that your ego just loves to trick you into thinking you're doing something so virtuous, so honorable. But you're not. And so just knowing that is really important.
The truth is, you deserve to build a team that supports you, not drains you, right? Yeah. Bucket filler, bucket dipper. And your clients deserve clinicians that are supported and aligned.
Yes.
So even when it feels like you can't take your time, and remember that hiring isn't just about today. But the stronger your hiring systems, the fewer of these fire drill moments that you will have in the future. I'm going to look back to some of the other podcasts. But yeah, let's continue this conversation. This is obviously, as a field, as fellow business leaders, let's all support each other. How can we help each other? What can we do to help lead on each other, to learn from each other, to support each other, to work through this, because it's real. It's a very real issue right now, and a lot of people
there's three major pain points with every ABA practice, right? And you're going to get slapped in the face with them all the time. It's billing, right? Oh, we got denied, we got audit, there's hiring, and there's, when you need clients, they're nowhere to be found, right? It's just those three things are constantly, they're always going to be on your mind. And so you can be driven by those things, or you can be driven by your values. And that's a decision that you're just going to have to make. Do you come out of the storm, or do you enjoy the storm, right? And again, that goes back to that self-awareness. I've worked with many people. They love the storm. They get their kicks from the storm. It's just, they just enjoy saving the day. They just do.
Yeah. And you can learn to not get sucked up into the storm. We're still human. We're going to make, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to have our days.
Of course.
But you can for sure learn how to, for the most part, not get sucked into those
knowing that, hey, I do get something from this.
Awareness is the first step.
Is the first step. So yeah, I would urge you not to rush it, even if you feel you need to rush it. You're not going to make your best decision rushed. I think everyone can agree with that.
Yeah, do my mom trick that my mom taught me. I think it'll work for you.
Okay.
Is it going to matter in 5 minutes? Is it going to matter in 5 hours? Is it going to matter in 5 days? Is it going to matter in 5 weeks? Is it going to matter in 5 months? Is it going to matter in 5 years? Right. And sometimes even just walking through that, like, and slowing yourself down, could be like, well, or you could do the what if, then what, and kind of get to that like end thing and realize, okay, well, we could, at that point, we could find a really good hire.
Yeah.
And put our time into it, or we could have like hired 3 people and had to pay like $30,000 as we've had turnover 3 times. Yeah,
I think it's a good idea to intentionally slow this down, right? Like just slowing it down, seeing what happens, right? Like sometimes I remember you were telling me, like sometimes I wouldn't respond to an email. So at first it wasn't intentional, but then you forget to send to respond. Couple days go by and the thing just fixed itself, right? And so that now I get that hiring is not like that. It's not like somebody's gonna pop up on your door. Hey, look, they're on the payroll. I don't know how it happened, but
we could talk manifesting, but I think that might lose half of you.
Yeah. But I think like there is something to that, right? And so I would urge you that if you are feeling rushed, just to take a moment and say, Is this really an immediate issue, or can I take a breath and take a walk around the building, right? Go outside, and just take a moment for myself.
Go sit in your car.
Yes, go scream, go listen to your favorite music, whatever, right? I must be able to do that. And I think you can. And that, I believe, will help you make a better decision. One that's less ego-driven.
Yeah, practice that pause. We've talked about that in previous podcasts.
Yep.
All right, guys, thank you so much. I know that you're like super busy, and so it means so much to us that you take time out of your busy schedule to listen or watch us, and feel free to rate and review our podcast.
Yeah, it does really help. Sharing it is really helpful too.
Yeah. And come visit us on ABA Business Leaders Facebook. Mm-hmm. We're also on Instagram and LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll put that stuff in the show notes. It probably already is there. Check it out. Yeah. All right. Have a great one.
See ya. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Hopefully it was helpful. If you would like to gain access to this entire video and actually our entire library of videos, please join our ABA Business Leaders membership. You can find that at www.3pisquare.com.